Nicole Draffen is the award-winning author of the Hyphened-Nation, Don't Check the Box, a literary memoir that provides a unique global perspective on Americans' hyphenated history and its impact on millions of American people of colour. Draffen's experiences living abroad allowed her to gain a deeper understanding of this important issue, inspiring her to shed light on it in today's climate of cultural and racial tension. And Nicole is with us here. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm excellent, thank you. So, by hyphenated nation, what do you mean by that?
One thing, hyphenated or Hyphened-Nation, the name of the book, is that what I mean is that we live in a country which I didn't even realize. So I traveled outside the country, mainly to England, was that we're one of the only countries that uses a hyphenated nationality to separate people. And by separating people, I mean that i.e. African American, Chinese American, Arab American. Instead of just saying American, we are using hyphens to create biases and stereotypes and separating people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by a hyphened nation, where in places like England, when I visited, that was non-existent. And it was very surprising to me because I didn't realize that other countries didn't do that. And also the way I was treated and the way people interacted with me was such a different experience that it made me understand that there was something deeply wrong with the way that we treated each other, the way we saw each other. It's just a deeply disturbing experience that when I left England and went back to America, I knew that this was something I needed to talk about with people, and discuss this. And quite honestly, people who do travel outside of the country, people of color, are very well aware of this. It's just something that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant by hyphened nation. Very interesting.
So why do you think America is so hyphened compared to other countries? Because, as you mentioned, it seems to only be an American thing.
Yes, from what I can tell, it's been used as a way to separate us. I look at it as divide and conquer because the entire time that I've grown up, that I've been in the country, I was born and raised there in California specifically. When you use a hyphen to separate people, you can categorize them and you can label them. You can put them into a bucket. These people are like this. These are Chinese people. They go here. These are people of African descent. They go here. These are people of Arabic descent. They go here. And the only people actually who are truly categorized as American in America are white people. They are just American. There's no extra categorization. And, if you notice a hyphen, if you look at a hyphen looks exactly like a minus sign. And it is used in the same context in our country. It is used to diminish our nationality instead of bringing us all together. And as an example of that, when I went to England and people, when I talked to people, when they approached me or when I approached someone and I asked a question, one of the first comments that they would make would be, "Oh, you're American." And quite honestly, inside of America, I'd never been called, "Oh, you're an American." It was, "Oh, you're African American." Or better yet, a lot of people of color get asked this question, "What are you?" And the "what are you" question usually stems from they want to find out what your ethnic background is so they feel more comfortable interacting with you because, "Oh, you're Black, so you must like this. You must like soul food. You must like jazz. You must like this." Instead of allowing any type of individuality, you're not allowed that in this country. You're constantly fighting against stereotypes. And and you don't realize it when you're here, when you're living here. You don't realize that you spend your entire life fighting against bias. It's like you're trying to overcome the bias that comes through books, music, that comes through television. A great part of it that comes through our government. And so my goal is to bring this reality to light so that we can basically do something to change it. I don't know. Are you familiar with Plato's The Cave?
Certainly familiar with Plato.
Okay. Well, Plato shadow has a story. It's called The Cave. Basically, these men were, and I'm just going to paraphrase, these men were inside of, basically raised up inside of a cave. Their backs were to the opening of the cave. They were chained inside the cave. Their backs to the opening so the light would go past them and create shadows. And they thought that these shadows were what was reality. The shadow of a bird had a meaning behind it, person walking between them, behind them, and the light, that was shadow, and it was creating something. And they just really created this entire world based on shadow. One of the guys escaped. When he went outside the cave, at first everything was so bright he couldn't see. And then as he started to see, he realized that everything he believed to be true was not. It was like, wow, that's not real what we're seeing. Those are shadows. So eventually he came back after he had experienced all this, came back inside the cave, tried to save the other people in the cave and explained to them, that's not real what you're seeing. That's a shadow. Outside, the world is very different. And when he told them this, they became very angry and pretty much wanted to hurt him, to kill him. They said, he must be crazy. This is reality, not what he's saying. That pretty much sums up exactly how I felt when I came back to America after experiencing living in England for a short time. I felt like I had been living in a cave and everything that I knew was false. And it gave me such a sense of individuality to know that what we live in is a bubble compared to what is out there. It was just amazing. I'm sure you can tell I absolutely love England.
Yeah.
I think you guys are so far ahead of us. And I'm not putting England on a pedestal and saying that you don't have any social ills. I know that there are social ills all over the world.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that England is probably about 20 years ahead of the United States as far as diversity and inclusion and just the feeling of national pride.
Yeah. Maybe because America's so hugely populated, and sometimes it could be argued some Americans think that America is the center of the world. America is kind of like a default thing, and you have to be categorized within that, and maybe that's the reason.
Well, here's the thing. But do we have to be categorized? Why are we categorized because we want to be categorized? Because I can tell you from firsthand experience, we do not. This conversation that you and I are having is had by millions of people of color all over the world. And think about this. Think about if you have an interracial couple. What are their children? Their children are treated based on the way they look. If they're darker, oh, you're African American. If you're lighter and you don't look like you're Black, oh, okay, you're white. And you get, that's the part that makes it really, really difficult. And so many multicultural, multiracial people have this, it's like they're struggling to sit on this fence of, I'm not Black enough, I'm not white enough. Why can't you just be enough? Why can't you just be an individual? We are not raised to be individual. We have to fit into a niche of who other people think we are. And I'm not saying that happens in other countries, but in here, it is the default. Instead of us being allowed to have some individualism, just as I was saying earlier about the conversations of someone not assuming who they think I am based on the color of my skin was so refreshing and so awe-inspiring to me. That shouldn't be awe-inspiring. That should be just the way it is, that you are just seen as an individual, which accounts for a lot of the problems that we're having in the country right now with them.
Yeah.
And not just, shootings and things of that nature, but just in general, we are not allowed, people of color are truly not allowed individuality in a way that they can just be themselves. And it's ridiculous.
So you've interviewed people for the book. How did you go about selecting those individuals?
A lot of people actually approached me and they talked about how their experiences, they started sharing their experiences with me. And that, because it was really hard for me to write this book, because I am not a person that really wants to share my opinion about a lot of political things or a lot of things that are going on in the country. And so when I finally wrote this book, and it has a lot of very strong opinions in it, I started being approached, and the people were overwhelmingly happy with the fact that this conversation was being put out, into the general public. And that's how, again, a lot of the people who I interviewed were people who approach me and or when they ask me about it, when they asked about what the book was about, and I told them, they said, "Oh, that's we talk about that all the time," or they tell me their experience. Or surprisingly, a lot of white people would say, "You know what? I've always wondered that. I've always wondered why we hyphenated citizens by ethnicity before nationality." So this is a conversation that truly needs to be had, and just people are afraid, to put it out there or to talk about it. They feel uncomfortable. It's a conversation that we must have and be put on the table and have some get some different perspectives on why we have it and what we should do to overcome this.
And what do you hope readers will take away from the book? Do you hope that it's maybe going to change the way people describe people, or I suppose even just wake them up to this?
Both. It will change the way that we see each other as American citizens, and it will make people stop, take a step back, and say, "Wow, wait a minute," and question their own biases, because we all have biases. But if you take a moment and say, "Wait a minute, what if this person was my sister? What if this person was my brother? What if this person was my cousin, uncle, or whatever?" If you stop for a moment and say, "Okay, let me take this person at face value as another human being and talk to them," I think a lot of people would learn a lot more about other people without first applying that bias of, before you see that I'm a woman, before you talk to me, before you see anything else, you see I'm Black, and it immediately creates bias, where I didn't experience that in England at all. It was just, to me, I mean, I still find it, I miss it. I really do.
Yeah. Are there any particular stories or experiences that you learned along the way when you were interviewing people, or that are just in the book for any other reasons that particularly resonated with you?
I think that one of the things that particularly resonated with me was that people are exhausted with having to explain themselves or have to fight against biases. They've gotten to a point, and I see this a lot with Gen Zers, a lot. They have just decided that I will be damned if I allow you to base who I am specifically on, what you see, the color of my skin. And they've almost taken it to another level where they have their individualism comes shining through. They are smashing stereotypes. They are refusing to be put in boxes where I'm a Gen Xer and that I'm used to just kind of staying in my lane and doing, okay, you know what, let me just stay right here. I know this is what people are going to think about me based on what they see, so I have to act the opposite. That is over. That is over, okay? But these kids now, they are like, I'm not having it. And so I'm rooting for them because they're doing such a great job. I mean, nothing's perfect, but these kids out here are saying, I'm not allowing you to define you, define you. And that's kind of like what our battle cry is for this whole mission is you define you. Don't allow others. And I wish, if I had to go back in time, that would be, and just be my authentic self, that would be something I would just embrace wholeheartedly. So that's one thing.
And I suppose the overall message of this book is we're all Americans. Not me, obviously, but people from America.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter what you put in front of that. And I think the thing is as well, most African Americans grew up in America, don't particularly feel any connection to Africa, I would take it.
Well, some do, but it has nothing to do with that because, see, what people fear is that if you unhyphenate your nationality, it's somehow taken away from your cultural identity. When I went to England, I met people from all different ethnicities, and in their homes, they celebrated different types of celebrations that strictly had to do with their cultural identity. But all in all, they were Mancunian, or they're from Liverpool, or they're from London, and that was like the accent especially. I didn't even know that England had so many accents. That was a shocker.
Yes.
As far as that's concerned.
It's crazy.
Yes, it is. You drive 10 miles and next thing you know, it's like, wait a minute. Everybody sounds different. That was shocking because I think a lot of Americans think that all people from England sound like you, or or sound like Hugh Grant or
Yeah.
Liz Hurley and so that was a shocker. That and longboats for me. But no, but yes, America is a mosaic of different cultural identities and things of that nature. We're talking about national identity and national togetherness and seeing each other as Americans versus African/American. And as far as African American is concerned, you're right. There are, like for me, for example, I think that the African culture is beautiful, but if you think about it, Africa is a continent with hundreds of different languages and cultures and states. And it's like if you're going to choose, I mean, are you Zambian? Are you Ghanaian? Are you Nigerian? Are you South African? There are so many countries within that continent with different, very distinct cultural histories. So you're going to take an entire continent, attach it to America, and say that's what you are.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because you've got African Americans, but also Italian Americans. One's a continent, one's a country.
Exactly. It's like, it's really insane. And so that's the kind of conversation that we need to start having and saying, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And who is it benefiting? Truly, the only people it benefits are people who benefit from racism. That's who it benefits, because I hear politicians say, oh, I'm trying to get the African American vote. I'm trying to get the Chinese American vote, the Spanish American vote. But what about the American vote? So that is what the problem is. And it benefits the government to separate people, because divide and conquer is how people stay in power. That's why we have so many. It's like we don't even have political parties anymore. We have football teams, and you root for whichever one you want. I mean, Republican, Democrat. I mean, why can't you're all supposed to be here for the American people, but you're not. They're there for themselves, period. Because the only people that are getting rich off of what they're talking about is self, or it's beneficial to them. We are a divide and conquer. That's specifically what it is. And that's what the hyphen is used to do. Minimize, divide, and conquer.
Well, have you got any more books on the way that you're working on?
Yes, actually, I'm working on a book right now that talks about the danger of presumption. And so, and the missed opportunities that we have as individuals because of that. So I'm working on a book right now about that.
Exciting. And in the meantime, this book is called Hyphened-Nation. Where are we able to find it?
Everywhere. You can find it on my website at hyphen/nation.com. You can go on Barnes & Noble. It is available on Amazon UK, Amazon, of course, USA. I said Barnes & Noble, Amazon, any bookstore. If you type in Hyphened-Nation, you're going to find it at any bookstore that you would normally be able to find online. It's not in bookstores, but it's definitely available online, and it's available on an audiobook for the people that, like me, who love to listen to books while they work or drive or walk.
Yeah. Well, many thanks for talking to us today. It's been great to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. It's been lovely. Thank you.